What's going on, Bronco Nation? This is your boy BX, aka the Mile High Diplomat, and I want to welcome you to my very first episode of the Mile High Diplomat. First of all, I want to do a couple things today as I do these video casts. I'm going to try to keep them fairly short, 15 minutes or less, but just want to kind of be able to put some things out there, have some conversations with other people that are members of Bronco Nation that don't necessarily live in Colorado. I personally live in Richmond, Virginia. I did live in Denver for a while, but now I'm here, but I still bleed orange and blue. So one of the reasons why I'm doing this is that, I've been a Broncos fan for 30-some years, since 1987. I love my Denver Broncos. Matter of fact, when I die, I tell him I want him to put on my tombstone, this man loved his God, he loved his family, and he loved his Denver Broncos. So, like I said, I got out to Denver. I started liking the Broncos back in 1987. And most of that was just basically because of the names that they had. I loved the Orange Crush and the Three Amigos. We had Ricky Natil and Mark Jackson and Vance Johnson and those guys. So I love that. 1987, I think that was the same year. They went to the Super Bowl, played the Redskins, lost 42-10. But I liked them at that point. Well, coincidentally, about 3 years later, when I graduated high school, I actually ended up in Denver, Colorado at Lowry Air Force Base. I went into the military. And so being out there on my birthday in 1990, I got a chance to go to my very first Broncos game on November 18th, which is my birthday. Never will forget, we played the Chicago Bears. We lost 16-13 at home. But here's the thing with that. That was literally my very first experience with a professional sports team. I had never been to a professional game, came from a small town here in Virginia. So having that experience was just so amazing, and that kind of kicked me to another level of being a Broncos fan. So, now I go hard. Basically during the year, it never stops for me. So during the draft, I'm doing my pre-draft boards and all that kind of stuff. And then when we get into preseason this time of year, I've already done my pre-53-man roster or projection for the team that we have going into the season. So just got all this stuff going on around here in my head. And I figure I need some place to put it, some place to share it with some people that actually care about it. So I decided, why not start my own video series and kind of share it with some people, like I said, that may not necessarily be in Denver, or even if you're a Broncos fan and just want to have some regular talk about this great team. That's what this is about. So that is why I started the Mile High Diplomat, representing the Broncos everywhere across the country, even if we're not in Denver. So with that being said, I want to jump into a couple of things today. I want to talk about, I just want to give a brief overview of what I think about the offense, what I think about the defense, touch on special teams a little bit as well. Want to talk about what I'm going to be looking for in tonight's game, as well as I'm going to leave you with my predictions. I've been pretty good at making predictions. So 3 years ago, we were in the Super Bowl. I predicted that we would have 50 sacks that season, or more than 50 sacks that season, and we did, and obviously won the Super Bowl. So with that, hey, let's jump in, man. I want to talk about our offense a little bit. Going to start off with everybody's favorite topic, and that is Case Keenum. We got him from the Vikings. I actually liked this guy. I loved him when we first got him. I thought it was a great choice over Kirk Cousins. So real good move there. And here's what I think he brings to the team. Like, whether or not he's going to have another lights out year like he did last year, I think it's kind of irrelevant. I think there's a couple of things he can do that's going to make our offense better. Starting off with the fact that he doesn't turn the ball over a lot, so that's going to help us. Last year we had a boatload of interceptions, so that's going to cut down with Case Keenum. The other thing he does well is he performs well under pressure, so he had a very high rating and pass percentage while under pressure. And the third thing that's really huge for us is that he converts on third downs and he converts in the red zone. So those three things alone are really going to give us a lot better quarterback play. But here's the big thing that he does. He brings leadership to the team. And that's all I've been hearing out of camp this year, is that this guy's a leader. The team is rallying around him. The guys like playing with him, and they like playing for him. So pretty excited about seeing him at that quarterback spot and have some stability at the position. The other thing about the offense I'm looking at is our offensive line. The offensive line, in my opinion, is a lot better. I like the addition of Jared Veldheer. I think if we can keep him and Ron Leary healthy, that the young guys on that line will come along. Feel pretty good about Connor McGovern. He's had a good couple of years. We picked him up in the draft year before last. And so now he's getting a starting opportunity. He played some snaps last year, both at guard, and he spent some time at center when Matt Paradis was out. So I think he's going to be pretty good. I must say, though, during the draft, I wanted Quentin Nelson from Notre Dame. I wanted that guard. I felt like if we had added him with Jared Veldheer and the rest of that offensive line, we would have had a top 5 offensive line in the NFL. And that's still very possible, but I just thought that guy was a surefire thing. But anyway, we didn't get him. We took Bradley Chubb instead, and who can knock that? So I think the offensive line is going to look good. The young guy's going to come along. Next up, talk about the receivers. And when I get to the receivers, it's 2 groups on this team that I'm just going to say wow about, and the receivers is one of them. Obviously, we all know what Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders can do, but Cortland Sutton has been the talk of camp. This guy's just repeatedly making play after play after play every day. And then when you add to that, Deshaun Hamilton, he's not making as many plays as Cortland Sutton, but he's making plays his own right, and Cortland's kind of outshining him. But you're adding a wide receiving core of 4 top-level guys. And Vance Johnson said last week when Demaryius and Emmanuel were out that there was no drop-off at the receiver position with those 2 guys in the mix. So, again, just wow about the receiving core. Got to want to look and see who's going to take that 5th and 6th receiver slots. But I think the receiving core is going to be a beast. I mean, if you think about putting Cortland Sutton on the outside with Demaryius Thomas and moving Emmanuel Sanders back into the slot, that's going to be a top-tier wide receiving trio in the NFL. I would say top 3 maybe. You're not going to find a better trio of receivers in the NFL, and that's going to give Case Keenum a lot of weapons, along with we get some tight end play out of Jake Butt, and if our running game kind of gets in sync, man, that offense is going to be pretty amazing. So, and speaking of the running backs, I'm pretty excited about the pickup of Royce Freeman. I thought that was a good move. Devontae Booker, I don't want to say anything bad about him, but there's not a lot of exciting things to say about him as well. So he's just one of those guys. I think he's serviceable. There's nothing wrong with him. Happy to have him on the roster. But I think Royce Freeman is going to be a little bit more dynamic. In addition to that, guy we had last year from D'Angelo Henderson, he had a lights-out camp last year, and he finally got on the field probably near the end of the season, had a real good run for a touchdown in the last game of the season. So I'm excited to see him play. So I think that running back core is kind of going to determine how successful our offense is, as long as we can have some balance there so they're not, really playing us for the pass because they know we can't run the ball, which has been a problem for us in the last year or so. I think it's going to be good. But overall, I feel good about our offense. I think that was Chris Harris that made a projection. We're going to put up 30 points a game. I'm inclined to kind of agree with that. I don't know what you think, but let me know. Leave a comment. But I think we can definitely put up between 24 and 30 points a game with this offense. So that's my take on the offense. Moving next to the defense, we get to the pass rush. That is the second group on this team that just makes me say, wow. Not much you can do to stop that. You're talking about Von Miller, and you're adding Bradley Chubb to that. He's already playing lights out, it looks like, in camp. If that can translate over into game situations, then that's going to be a monster by itself. Shane Ray didn't have to have surgery, and so he's going to be playing. I think he's got a lot to prove. Plus, it's a contract year for him. So, ultimately, he needs to put up the best stats of his career to be able to get a contract either with us or with this next team. So looking at that and have Shaquille Barrett. And there's a guy, Jeff Holland, that we got as an undrafted free agent. I actually had him in the 6th round on my draft board. So I was real happy we got him as an undrafted free agent when he didn't get drafted. I think this kid should make the team, hopefully, if he can make the team, because I don't think we'll be able to sneak him on the practice squad. So we should have 5 dominant pass rushers there. But when you go from the pass rushers on the edge to outside linebackers and then come into our interior linemen, then, the statement is still, wow. I believe we will have one of the top 3 interior defensive lineman groups in the league. Starting on the outside with Derek Wolfe, you've got Domata Peko in the middle, and right now it's slated to be Adam Gotsis at that other defensive end position. Those guys are going to be monsters. It's just such a solid group. But the thing with that is when you look at the second level, if you take those 3 guys out and bring in the next 3 guys that I'm projecting to be on the 53-man roster, you're talking about DeMarcus Walker. So DeMarcus Walker last year kind of failed an experiment, stood him up, tried to make him an outside linebacker because we had some guys hurt. But now this year he's put the weight back on. He's putting his hands back in the dirt. And I think what's good about that is because last year he spent time with pass rushers, learning how to be an edge rusher. If he brings that technique to a down lineman, then I think he's going to be a beast. In the middle, we can plug and play the veteran Zach Kerr. And then on the other side, we've got Shelby Harris. I don't know if most people notice or not, but last year Shelby Harris was the second leading sack player on our team behind only Von Miller. Von Miller had 10 sacks. Shelby Harris had 5.5. I think Gotsis and Derek Wolfe both had 2 apiece. So, but Shelby Harris is a beast. He came on strong last year. Even if he's not starting and he gets to come on and be able to spell those guys, that is a solid interior defensive rotation. So when you look at the pressure coming up the middle, the pressure coming off the edge, then we move into our cornerbacks. I think our cornerbacks are going to be solid. Obviously, Chris Harris Jr., All-Pro, he's going to be fine. Bradley Roby gets to step up and get a starting position this year. So I think he's going to be okay as well. And then I think that Tremaine Brock is probably going to be our third cornerback. And so behind him, I saw on the depth chart, it looks like they have Isaac Yiadom, and then behind him, Brendan Langley. So we'll see how that shakes out. But I think we have solid cornerbacks, particularly in the top 2 to 3. So we should be okay. And then when you get back to our defensive backs with Justin Simmons, Darian Stewart, Seward Cravens, who we brought over from the Redskins, and I think he is going to be such an improvement to this group, because when you look at where we got beat by tight ends a lot last year, particularly when you get to guys like Gronk and Travis Kelce and guys like that. If you don't have somebody to contend and cover those guys, that's where we can get beat at. And I think Seward Cravens is going to be the answer to that. So he's going to make that defensive back group much improved. And not only that, he can step up into the box and be kind of a hybrid linebacker as well. So I think the defense is really going to be our bread and butter. I skipped over the linebackers, the inside linebackers. Obviously, Brandon Marshall. Todd Davis. No, not Todd Davis. Is it Todd Davis? No, who's our other coach? Anyway, I'm missing the inside linebacker, but Josie Jewell has been playing lights out, and so I think he's going to contend for some space there. We got a guy named Keyshawn Vieira, and I think he's going to be probably challenging Zaire Anderson for that fourth linebacker spot, inside linebacker spot. So that's what we're looking at, inside linebacker. I think that group's going to be solid, but that's going to be a plug and play based on which package we in. So as long as we got Brandon Marshall there, we should be strong. And like I said, I think the rookie Josie Jewell is going to contend there. So once again, our defense is going to be the strong point of our team, but I think we're going to have much, much more balance, even when it comes to special teams. Marquette King, the punter coming over from the Raiders. This guy is lights out. Love him, love him, love him. He can put the ball pretty much anywhere he wants to. He's got a booming leg and an attitude to go with it. So love that. Going back to the returners, I think it's going to come down to either let's see, we've got Isaiah McKenzie or Philip Lindsay. One of those two guys. This will probably determine who gets a spot on the roster. I don't think Philip Lindsay will make the roster strictly on being a running back, so I think he's probably going to need to be that return specialist in order to get on the 53-man. But if Isaiah McKenzie beats him out and gets one of the wide receiver slots, I think maybe Philip Lindsay might not make it. And again, he's another one of those guys. It is going to be hard to kind of sneak him onto the practice squad so we can keep him for later. But we'll just have to see how that shakes out. So there you have it. That's my overview of the team, the offense, the defense, and a little bit on the special teams. And so, once again, I think we have a good squad. I'm going to tell you how good I think our squad will be this year in just a second. But first, I'm going to tell you about tonight's game. So what I'm excited about today is it is literally our first game of the year, although it's preseason. I know people say that. For me, it gives us the opportunity to be able to see a lot of the young players and kind of figure out, who's going to make the roster, who's going to be able to help us out and where. So what I'm looking for tonight is mainly on offense. Once again, I think our defense is set. It's going to be the strong point of our team. So on offense, I'm primarily going to be looking at that running back battle. Again, you got Devontae Booker. You got Royce Freeman. We've got D'Angelo Williams and David Williams is in there, Philip Lindsay. So it's about 4 or 5 guys in there. Kind of want to see how those guys are going to play tonight. Who maybe step up and take charge of that group and kind of see where we go from there. Because as I mentioned before, I think the running game is kind of going to dictate how much success we can have with the offense. Other thing I'm going to be looking at tonight is the second string wide receivers. We talked about them, Cortland Sutton and Deshaun Hamilton. I want to see those guys translate the success they've had in camp and in preseason into game time situations. So we're definitely going to be looking at that tonight. And then finally, the quarterback competition. Nope, not talking about Case Keenum, not talking about Trevor Siemian or anybody like that. Case Keenum is entrenched as a starter, but I want to see the reps that Paxton Lynch and Chad Kelly are going to get. Now, I want to go on record and say this. I love Chad Kelly. I think, honestly, Paxton Lynch, I'm ready to cut him, as a lot of people are. And for me, I think what did it was last year I saw him on the bench crying after he got hurt or whatever. But I think he was crying mostly because he was playing like crap. But with that being said, it is what it is. There is no crying in football. So you kind of lost my respect there. But with that being said, Chad Kelly, his camp, they've said has been a little bit inconsistent, and I get that. Essentially, he is a rookie this year. This is his first year. But with that being said, this guy, throughout his history, he's a gamer. So, he may not be showing out in camp, but come game time, I'm thinking tonight he's going to go lights out, and he's pretty much going to challenge Paxton Lynch. Paxton Lynch may not have a job next week. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about that, and those are the things I'm looking for tonight. Also, as I mentioned earlier, that battle between Phillip Lindsay and Isaiah McKenzie to kind of see who shakes out for the kick return. So there you have it there. So I'm going to wrap this thing up. Going to jump right into my predictions. Couple of things I want to predict this year. The first one, going back to the defense, as I did 3 years ago, I predict that our defense will have between 45 and 50 sacks. I know that sounds like a lot, considering we only had 33 last year. But I figure if we could improve our sack total from last year by 50%, that's another 16, 17. Add that on to the 33, then that should put us in that 48 range. And so I'm thinking we're going to be much improved. I'm looking for probably between 8 and 10 sacks maybe from Bradley Chubb. I think that's a big number, but I think he'll get it. I think Vaughn will get 10. We'll get 12 plus, maybe in the 15 to 16 range. And when you add on all the other guys and they start giving their 3 or 4 sacks because you can't block them all, I think we're going to have a high sack total, and our defense is really going to win ball games for us. But this year they won't necessarily have to, because my second prediction is that Case Keenum will have 4,000 yards or better passing. I predict he'll have between 26 and 27 touchdowns, and maybe only about 8 or 9 interceptions. So I think he's going to have a really great year because he's got a lot of weapons to throw to him. And as long as our offensive line can kind of keep him clean a little bit, I think he's going to do great. So now for the final prediction. I predict that our team is good enough to finish 11-5. That's right, 11-5 Denver Broncos. I think we win the division, go back to the playoffs this year with an 11-5 record. Now, let me tell you where I get this from, because I don't want you to think I'm just making it up high in the sky. We are generally a good team at home. We win a large percentage of our games when we play at home, and we have a decent team. When I look at the schedule, not a lot of teams should beat us at home, but there are 2 that I'm concerned about, and that is the Houston Texans in Week 6 and the LA Rams, I believe, in looks like Week 10. Actually, I have that reversed. LA Rams in Week 6, Houston Texans in Week 10. Between the 2, I think we have a better chance of beating the Texans because we know what Wade Phillips' defense looks like. You're talking about Todd Gurley coming in my opinion, best running back in the league. Jared Goff and those receivers, they just got Brandon Cooks out there, and that defense is just going to be a beast. They're going to look a lot like us. So with that being said, I think we're going to have our hands full with them. Not calling them a loss, but if there is going to be one, I think that's the space where we may take one. I think we will have a much better time trying to defend ourselves against the Texans in Week 10. So between those 2 games, we win one of the 2. That means we'll have won 7 games at home. I think we can win half of our games on the road. The 4 games on the road I feel confident in is the Ravens, the Jets, the Cardinals, and the Bengals. Those are teams and games that we should be able to win based on how our team is set up right now. So if we win 7 games at home, 4 games on the road, that is an 11-win season. I'm calling 11-5 for the Denver Broncos. You heard it here first from the Mile High Diplomat. Thanks for hanging out with me today. Take a minute and give a like to the video if you enjoyed the information. Shoot me some questions, shoot me some comments, and when we do the next episode, maybe we can talk about some stuff. Again, representing everybody that's a diehard true and blue or true orange and blue Denver Bronco fan that doesn't necessarily live in Colorado. We're representing them around the country. I'm signing out. This is BX, the Mile High Diplomat. Thanks for tuning in.